How's it going, everybody? Josh Rosales here, and I'm super excited. I am overwhelmed with the honor to have Cicely with us on the Break Thru U podcast. And let me introduce Cicely to everyone, those of you that are watching and listening. Cicely is a keynote speaker, a best-selling author of the book, Up Your C.H.A.I.R, 5 Strategies to Change the Trajectory of Your Career, an entrepreneur as founder and CEO of Summit and Public Affairs in Washington, D.C., and a co-founder of Career GPS, a groundbreaking career mentoring and training community. Cicely is changing the way people understand the role in their own career. In her 25-year career, Cicely has made her mark on the leadership team in every position she held. Today, she endeavors to show everyone from CEOs to students how they can carve out a permanent space at the table, no matter what direction their career takes. Cicely, welcome to the Break Thru U podcast. I am super excited about this conversation because I really don't know where this conversation is going to go, but we're just going to jump in and then take it from there.
Awesome. Listen, I'm thrilled to be here, Josh. Thank you for the invitation. We can go anywhere you want to go in this conversation, my friend. So you tell me, and I'm happy to follow your lead.
Sounds good. So you and I, we met maybe less than a year ago in Murfreesboro. You and I were both, I honestly, this is my, Megan Farrell, props to Megan. She is incredible. I love her, all the work that she does in the community, her passion, desire, and zeal, and dedication, and connections, and definitely a center of influence. She invited me to speak at her mastermind that she put together, which was an incredible event where I was able to meet yourself, and I was able to meet Omar and others that were there speaking. And let me tell you, when you got on that stage and you opened your mouth, I was like, OMG. Like, there's people that, you can tell that you've worked on your craft. You can tell that you have dedicated hours, and not just hours, but thousands of hours and years on your craft to speak. And just in the brief time that you spoke on stage, my jaw was on the ground, and I was just like, wow. It's like when you listen to somebody that has a command of and knows how to speak, it's like watching Picasso paint this beautiful painting. And you are, wow, like the way that you speak, people that watch your videos, listen to your podcast, even reading your book, like, it's the command that you have on how you communicate is incredible, almost spellbound, binding, just listening to you. And so that's the first time that I was introduced to you and met you, and you have just in that brief period of time, you have made such an impact on my life. And I love watching your videos on social media. And yeah, you are incredible. And just to be able to be connected to you I'm just like, wow.
Oh, you're very kind, Josh. Thank you so much. It's funny, I get that question often, like, because people watch the videos on social media, and in our career community, I go live every morning. And I get that question often. Have you been a public speaker for a while? How does that work? And I have to remind people, I started my career as a trained courtroom lawyer. So I was trained to convince a jury to see my side of the case. So my initial career path was going to be a prosecutor. So clearly I'm not doing that anymore, but I'm grateful and blessed to have had that training so that I can be a public speaker over the past 20 years.
Well, you'll be convincing me every single time. I'm like, wow. And I'm okay, I forgot what you said because I was just like transfixed on just how you speak. But from the limited time that we met there or here in Murfreesboro, and then following you on social media, and then understanding that you've had, like you mentioned, 20 years in politics, working for 4 administrations, um, and then your book, um, Pull Up Your Chair. Uh, I I want to dig into um, your life growing up, like what took you into that path of politics, and then yeah, let's start from there. So growing up, did you know you always wanted to be in politics, or were you more on say maybe a activist and passionate about different um, things that were going on in America, in legislation, like when did the bug bite you?
Great, all great questions. To be honest with you, I never sought to be in national politics. From the time I was 8 years old, I wanted to be a prosecutor, wanted to be a lawyer. That was what I literally focused on, a legal career since I was a child. So people often say to me, "How did you get into politics?" Very similar to your question. And honestly, Josh, you know me, I'm from small town Tennessee, Woodbury, Tennessee, a very small rural town. And so, but I had parents who would say to me, "You're not going to know until you try it. You're not going to know until you try." And they encouraged me to try things that were not part of my plan, that were not in my comfort zone. And so when I went to law school in California, real quick, when I returned to
Yeah.
Nashville to start practicing law after law school in 2001, I very quickly reconnected with some friends I'd gone to Lipscomb with undergrad, and one of them was running a congressional campaign for a state senator who was running for Congress. And he said, "Hey, you've got legal training now. Why don't you come volunteer with us? I don't know, you can help write talking points or do research, but we could probably use your help." And that was August of 2002. And fast forward to November, that state senator won the congressional race that year by like a point. I mean, it was the closest of margins. And he looked at me that night, election night, and he said, "Why don't you go to Washington with us?" And I was like, "You know where I'm from. I've never been to Washington." And he said, "How have you never been to Washington?" And I was like, "Why would I ever go to DC? That makes no sense." So he said to me that night, "Come to DC. I would love for you to be part of my team." And that is just how happenstance opportunity happens sometime. And I said to him, he said, "Look, if you don't like it, you can come back home." And I was like, "That's true. I'll try this. And if I don't like it, I can come back and practice law another time." So not part of the plan. Being here for the last 20 years, not part of the plan. I thought I would try it for 6 months, then go back and practice law in Nashville. And so opportunity comes in many different forms, my friend, when you least expect it.
That is so true. I think people I don't know if they get scared or they don't know what to do, and so they freeze up because it's like, okay, where do I go? I don't know, like, what direction to take. And it's just kind of like, just
Just go.
go and do. You'll find it along the way. And it's incredible because most politicians have a legal background, um, from what understand. Um, and so, it's kind of incredible how you have the legal background, you graduated, and then it's kind of like politics and your legal just kind of came together, which fate or God preparing you for a greater purpose and a greater plan that He had, that you had no idea that was set up for you. I'm always of the belief that God has already predestined you to what He wants you to do, and we kind of just stumble along the way and kind of just fall into His purpose, as long as we keep going that we should be going.
That's right.
And um so when you got into politics, was it, I know some people are like, I hate politics, and then some people are like, I love politics, like it just like consumes it, like you can easily get consumed with politics, like it's insane.
Yeah. Well, and listen, you can get consumed. To your point earlier, you do get the bug, because let's be honest, I'm sitting in Washington right now. There's no place like Washington, D.C., where you can do what we do here. It's a phenomenal blessing. But I'll tell you, Josh, that same member of Congress, Congressman Davis, that I worked on in 2002, when we first got to DC, cold as all get out, he took us out to the front of the Capitol, and we were all complaining, like, what are we doing? And it's cold. And he told us to look up at the Capitol. And we were like, yeah, okay. And he's like, if you ever forget how awesome of a privilege it is to be here serving the people of Tennessee, then it's time for you to go home. And 20 years later, the awesomeness of that privilege of still representing great causes, great companies. I mean, you understand the privilege of that. You understand the responsibility of that. So yeah, politics can be politics, but at the end of the day, the members of Congress who I worked for, Congressman Davis, Congressman Jim Cooper of Nashville, they were here for the right reasons, and that was to make people's lives better. So it was easy to work for members who were here for the right reasons, to make the citizens of Tennessee, just to make their lives a little bit better on a day-to-day basis. So that bug was easy to get after all these years, and to keep it when you understand why you're here and what you're doing. And to your point, it's been a faith journey. None of this was part of my plan. People often say to me when they read the book, or even when I go for speaking engagements, your career path is very non-traditional. And I say, yes, I have learned that I serve a God who can do immeasurably more than I can possibly ever ask or imagine, and who's told me, you know what, that 5-year plan you had about being a lawyer, it wasn't big enough. It wasn't bold enough. And so people say to me all the time, what's your 5-year plan? I don't do 5-year plans anymore, because what the opportunity that comes to me has been bigger, bolder, and better than any plan I could have ever put together.
And that is so true. I mean, I think that it's good to have a goal. It's good. I always say, and even in the corporate world, is like, never change like your goal. I think eventually, like, everybody wants to be at that place where you're financially free, financial freedom, and however you get there legally is the right way. But the way you get there, you're always going to have to tweak your business plan. What worked for you yesterday is not particularly going to work for you today. The goal never changes, but the plan is always having to be tweaked. What are your thoughts on that?
No, you're exactly right. I've coached teams that I've led, and now that I'm, the good Lord has led me into a different path of career coaching. It's the same thing. It's like your goal's the same. How you get there, and the strategy, the intervening events, that's where the flexibility comes from. That's where you have to be open to getting to your goal in a completely different way than you thought. Absolutely. And look, that's hard for people. That's hard for people not to have that straight line. And you're like, and you can have it, to your point, it's directional, but it shouldn't be the only thing you stick to. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah. So you worked for 4 administrations. What administrations were they?
Sure. So I started out my career in Washington during the Bush administration. So I've worked with the Bush administration, then I've worked with the Obama administration, certainly worked with the Trump administration, and now the Biden administration. So throughout my career in Congress, then working in a corporate setting at Dunkin' Donuts, then going on to represent the restaurant industry, and now having my own lobbying firm, then that's kind of my span of 4 administrations, is in different reiterations of my political career, being able to work with a lot of different administrations in the process.
So having a lobbying career or having a lobbying firm, is it the experiences that you've gained throughout your years of being in politics, taking all those experiences and the know-how and saying, hey, I can represent you because I know the how-to, the process, and then you're representing companies, organizations on Capitol Hill, with helping them with really, whether passing a bill or advocating for certain bills, and really just making sure like they be able to be there, but you're there in their stead, right? Kind of lobbying. Absolutely. I know there's a lot more into it, but
no, you're right. I mean, I very much have learned myself. I, coach companies, I coach individuals in their career. Know your story. What value do you have to offer? And I take that approach with my lobbying clients as well as career coaching clients that I've learned myself, which is you have to be able to articulate that value. And so, yes, having my own firm is the value I offer is 25 plus years in the intersection of business and politics. I know as much about business strategy and corporate working for a public company as I do politics. And that's a very unique intersection that I get to live at the, kind of the middle of every single day. And that's a unique vantage point that I get to bring to my clients, but also the value I offer is I can go from strategy to implementation. I understand business strategy, political strategy, how those two are married together. But at the end of the day, why people should care about that position or that issue as well. So I very much serve the same role. I'm an advisor to the folks I represent, but also take that knowledge and translate it to our audiences, whether that's the Biden administration or whether that's on Capitol Hill, of why this particular person or client or company's point of view, why it matters, why they should factor that in. I tell people lobbying is the ultimate form of advocacy. It is my legal career in 15-minute blocks. Because when I was a lawyer training to be a DA, I was preparing for courtroom cases that lasted 2 to 3 weeks. With a member of Congress, you get 15 to 20 minutes. You got to know your points, you got to make your case, and you got to be able to get them on your side in 15 to 20 minutes. So people say, do you miss being a lawyer? I'm like, I'm an advocate every day. I'm just advocating for different causes now, but it's the ultimate form of advocacy is to be in lobbying because you have that 15 or 20 minutes and that's going to make or break you.
So you worked for 4 administrations. So thinking back, the Bush administration was, these are some like major historic administrations that you worked for. The Bush administration, worked with, the Obama administration, the Trump administration. Just the Obama and Trump administrations on their own are probably, besides maybe the Reagan administration or some of these administrations, like those are probably the 2 most historic administrations, I would say. In your time, I've learned in politics, even on the local level, that I remember when my wife decided to throw her hat in the ring to run for the school board. Now, school board, probably your first rung on the ladder.
Sure.
We were like, okay, we're going to put our lives on hold. It helped that my wife is very versed in SEO and internet marketing. She loves strategy. She she graduated from UT Knoxville with a biochemistry degree. Very just strategic and analytical. But when we campaigned from February until August, she won. And she did the majority of her own campaign, marketing, door hangers, like text messaging. All the things she created herself, which a lot of other candidates were spending quite a bit of money. But one thing that I saw is that there was a particular campaign manager who was of a political leaning. And then all of a sudden we're like, how in the world is he campaign manager for the opposite side? And then it was like, come to find out he was a campaign manager for like 10 candidates, both Republican and Democrat. And I'm like, wow, like that blew my mind. Because I found out that a lot of times you work for both administrations, or working with both administrations, and not for, but with. And so even like campaign managers, or even the House aides, like some of them flip-flop and work for different. And that just like blew my mind, Cicely, because I'm like, I guess that blew my mind. But my question for you would be, how was your experiences working in both working with Republican administrations and Democratic administrations? Like, what was some of your key learnings, and I mean your key learnings for throughout your life, but um, that must have been some incredible high points, and I'm sure there was some low points in your career.
Well, and listen, you hit the nail on the head. I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot over the last few years that have been some historical moments. I have some great stories that I can tell about each of the administrations I've worked with. But sure, that transition from the Obama administration to the Trump administration was stark and it was real. So whatever issues or whatever projects we were working on with the Obama administration, the minute the Trump administration took office, they
Flip.
stopped. I mean, everything came to a screeching halt, and that happens from administration to administration. I mean, every 4 years or every 8 years when it changes, that happens. That's part of the norm. But to go from kind of two sides of two very different, I won't say two sides of the same coin, two very different approaches. Absolutely. I mean, I learned a lot. I also had to go back and really double down on some of the things we'd worked on with the Obama administration. Because if you recall, when President Trump came into office, he wanted to get rid of all unnecessary regulations. Well, guess what? The industries I worked in at that time, we had some pretty consequential stuff going on that we needed President Trump and his team to continue. And we worked with them and really explained the business case and, really leaned in hard to say, hang on, this is not a bad one. We need you to continue this one. But as you can imagine, that was a very different conversation than we were having 6 months ago before that with the Obama administration. So sure, every administration is absolutely different. Washington changes with the tone and tenor of each administration. So I've been fortunate to see all of those transitions, but yeah, they've brought some challenges as well, 100%. It's not for the faint
Yeah.
of heart here, Josh.
No, it is not. It is not for the faint of heart. And I think just being in politics, I think you learn how to grow, number one, thick skin. You also learn how to um, take things with a grain of salt. You have to keep focused because it's so easy. It's so easy to get distracted by all the things. Um, and I think it's kind of like, you know, the fitness industry. I interview quite a few bodybuilders, interview individuals that just have that mindset of dedication. It's like whatever you're doing, the Bible says whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might or heart, something like that. But it's like you gotta be constant. You gotta like keep your eye on the goal, not be distracted, learn how to adapt, lean into things, be flexible, but yet not compromise on your values or what your core beliefs are. And I feel that sometimes some people will kind of sell their soul to the devil, in essence. And then you have those people that say no. Um, and I think you have some of those people that say, no, I'm going to stand firm. And I think sometimes we on the left and the right, there's so like we're stuck. A lot of times we're stuck because one side doesn't want to give in a little bit, the other side doesn't want to give in together and say, okay, we may differ on these things, however there's these one or two that we can come together on, and let's start from maybe that point. And I think that a lot of people in their mindsets can't comprehend that in politics you got to kind of think that way, to say let's find a starting point and then let's work out from there.
Absolutely. It's why the members I worked for were called Blue Dog Democrats. They were the moderate middle, and there was a moderate group of Republicans in the middle and a moderate group of Democrats in the middle, and we were the ones that worked together because
Mhm.
the polar ends to this day, not even 20 years ago, to this day, the polar
Yeah.
opposites, the left and the far right, they've retreated to their corners. It's the folks in the middle that we often refer to now as the missing middle, because so many centrists, so many moderates, so many of those consensus builders have lost their re-elections for office, that while that core middle is shrinking, America is a center country. America is a centrist country. That bears out election after election after election. So there is a place for those consensus builders and the people in the middle to say, hang on, no, there actually is a point to start a conversation. Compromise has become a dirty word, so you can call it something else, but there actually is common ground, surprisingly enough, on a lot of issues. But common ground doesn't sell news stories, Josh. It's the polar opposite to sell the news stories, when in fact the real work is being done right here, but nobody ever knows about it. And that's happening with governors, that's happening here in DC, that's happening around the country. We love to gravitate to the shiny objects on the left and the right. We forget that the hard work is already going on in the middle.
Exactly. So through all of this, when did you find time, or what was it that said, hey, I'm going to write this book, Pulling Up Your Chair, and then the 5 strategies to change the trajectory of your career? When did that come into play?
Sure. So actually in early 2021, this is the power of LinkedIn for everybody who's watching this podcast. I got a message on LinkedIn. This is why I say sometimes we miss opportunity because it looks like work. I got a message from someone, I didn't know who they were. And I responded kind of thinking, okay, because the message just said, hey, have you thought about writing a book? And I thought, sure, everybody thinks about writing a book. But indeed, the conversation progressed, and let's do a Zoom call. And I thought, really? I don't know who this is. And I get on the Zoom call, and it was Advantage Forbes Media Group. And they said to me, very similar to this conversation we're having here, you have a very unique experience. You've been at the intersection of business and politics for 20 plus years. We don't know that we've ever seen someone with that kind of background, but also leadership experience. Have you thought about writing a book? So I say to people all the time, be careful. Opportunity comes in the form of work, because I almost didn't respond to that message. I didn't know who it was from. I thought, why would somebody send me that? But also at the same time, LinkedIn, really? Like, it came through LinkedIn. So a phenomenal opportunity came my way, which, again, if you kind of ask me, was the good Lord redirecting me into a different path to now really use the skills and talents and experiences I've had over 20 years in Washington to now help others. Because the one thing I've learned, Josh, you know this in your career, so many people know this, is no one tells you how to do this stuff. You trial and error and you figure it out. And there's so many times throughout my career where I say I've gone it alone. Yes, I had a mentor, but was there somebody there every day to help me figure it out? No, there wasn't. So the book was my way of starting that conversation. Here are the things that no one ever tells you in your career that are really, really important for you to know, which is now turned into a career community that's online, where we now can walk alongside people every day in their career. So you don't have to go it alone anymore, like all of us have done. You now have a coach and a mentor and a strategist there with you every day. But those are hard lessons to learn. And I know you've learned them in your career as well. Lots of trial and error and mistakes have been made. And so the book was my way of saying, heads up, this is how I've been successful in the highest rooms of power in the country, working with international leaders, boardrooms around the country with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. But this is the stuff nobody ever tells you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I say, we hear this out there, a center of influence, right? And so I would say that you are where you are because you've built yourself as a center of influence, right? People are like, hey, Cicely, we would love for you to represent us on Capitol Hill, or hey, if we have a question, or we need to get something done, we're going to go to Cicely because she knows. For those individuals out there that are watching and listening, that are striving on this path of becoming a center of influence, what would you say are the key points that a center of influence needs to have, or needs to be working on to begin that process, or they're in that process but maybe continue to work on?
Sure. There are a couple of pieces of advice I would offer. First of all, understanding that if you're a center of influence, that is the start. That is not where you stop. Influence, Josh, as you well know, and so many listening will know, influence can be episodic. It can be you're in good favor on Monday, and by Thursday, you're in the doghouse because you didn't do something right. So influence is where you start. What I coach people is impact is where you end. So use
Ooh,
influence to become a person of impact. That's why the I in chair is for impact. So many people say, is it influence? And I say no, because influence can be temporary. Your impact, a person of impact, how you show up every day can be lasting. And that's one of the key lessons I've learned is when you're a person of impact, first of all, the key tenet to your question is you have to know your value. So often, Josh, we are brought up, my dad and mom brought me up this way. Your identity is your job. Your identity is who you are and what you do. It's what you do every day. And we're seen
yeah.
to go to work, go to work, go to work. What I've learned is you have to actually, to become a center of influence and then move to impact, you've got to master self-advocacy. What do you bring to the table that no one else can? When someone says, why you've got to have that answer. So I always say, knowing that, being your cheerleader, knowing your value, that's what gets you to the table. Impact ensures you stay there. But so often, gosh, I've been speaking to hundreds of people over the past couple of weeks, and the answer I get every time is, I can't talk about myself. And I'm like, well, if you don't learn how to articulate your value of why you're different, what you're differentiated from somebody else, then you're not moving, you're not going anywhere in your career. Because that is the one piece that no one ever taught us, that you got to advocate for yourself. You want to grow, you want to advance, no one's going to do that for you. So that's the first place to start. But I would offer a second suggestion, and you hit on it a moment ago, which is adaptability, flexibility. That is the A in the chair acronym. Adaptability is the core competency you're judged on every day. Nobody ever told you. If you're adaptable and flexible and you can meet the moment of the things that come your way, people love it. Get it wrong and you're criticized for it. So
Yeah.
there are those core tenets of influence to move to impact. There's just some core pieces that no one ever told us, but we have to get it right because those are the things that people are paying attention to.
Wow. Wow.
How's that
Man.
response? Some mic drop moments
I'm
there.
like, whoa, man, that was wow. See, this is
True.
why.
It's true. You've had those moments when you're like, oh, I wish somebody would have told me that.
Yeah, yeah. And I never even, yeah. So let me ask you this. Where can those that are watching and listening pick up a copy of your book?
Sure. The book is online at Amazon. Just if you type in my name, Cicely Simpson, or if you type in Pull Up Your Chair, it comes up immediately. It's also, you can find it on my website, cicelysimpson.com. So the book is available at Barnes and Noble or Amazon. And we're talking about doing another revision of it because it's been so popular. So I'm grateful for everyone who has bought the book, supported the book, and appreciate all the speaking opportunities now we're getting about how to pull up your chair and what are those 5 strategies that make a difference in your career.
That is incredible. And of course, this book has come from years and years of experience that you've compiled together to put this book together, and it's incredible. Do you feel? I hear it said that that a book being a center of influence, maybe I don't know. Some people say it's a must, but being able to have a book is a part of being a center of influence. And would you say that?
The Forbes team has taught me that it enhances in authority. So
Hmm.
I'd say it's more of an authority builder, but I don't know that you need a book to have a message. The
Yeah,
important thing about having a message is getting your message out to people. Like I said, I've actually, done public speaking for 20 years. It was about politics because people want, to your point,
yeah.
wanted to tap into my knowledge. So I think the more important thing is a book can build the authority of the message you already have. What is your
Hmm.
message that you want the world to know? I think that's probably the piece of the equation that the book amplifies is what is your message?
And in every industry, whether it's political, social, um, whatever your industry in, every single day we wake up and we have to have the mindset, right? I mean, we may wake up on the wrong side of the bed, but we don't have to go through our day on the wrong side of the bed. You know, and a lot of times people say, well, I'm a victim of my environment. Well, I think you're a victim of the decisions that you make. And that's the beautiful thing about us, is that we may wake up on the wrong side of the bed, but we don't have to stay there. We consciously make those decisions. Like, what drives you, and what is your why, Cicely, every day when you wake up and you're facing your day, and it's like, what keeps you motivated? Because you're in an industry where, like, you could very much get discouraged. There's a lot on you. Like, what keeps you centered?
What keeps me centered is knowing exactly what you said when we first started. There's a bigger purpose for my life, that I know I'm here to have a greater impact. I mean, people say to me all the time now, why did you start your career community? I said, because when I was doing one-on-one coaching over the past couple of years, I could only do one-on-one coaching with a few people, because it was just me, and I have an entirely different business that I run. So now I'm running, multiple businesses. But the idea behind this community, Josh, is how do you impact more lives? How do you
Mhm.
actually be able to really, truly meet people where they are in their career? So my why is that. My why is giving back in a way that was never offered or given to me. We literally say every morning, whose life are we going to impact today? Whose day are we going to change because of that social media post or that phone call or that interaction? It's all about the people that we serve in our career community. That's what gets me going every day. And look, I'll tell people, and you guys know this, you can go through some pretty big bumps in your life and in your career. It's not that you went through the bumps, it's how you respond to them. It's how you react to them. It's how you know that there is something better in store for you. I've been fired from my job. I was skewered across the DC press for it. I've had my ups and downs. So people see things, Josh, and they hear podcast interviews, and they think, oh, that person's got it great. No, the
Yeah.
highs and
Mhm.
lows are big highs, and man, they are big lows, right? The
Yeah.
setback is just, getting you ready for the comeback, as I saw somebody
That's
posted
right.
on Instagram.
Yes.
Yes. And so what I know is that I hit those lulls, I hit those moments, and they were,
Yeah.
whoo, boy, they knocked me down. But the comeback and how I'm now using all those experiences to pour into others, that's not something you can ever script or plan for in your career, your life. It's a phenomenal blessing.
That's incredible. That is so true. If you continue to do what you're supposed to be doing, you're going to end up where you need to be. And
Bingo.
um, that's God's purpose, his plan. Uh,
Bingo.
every single one of the individuals, or anyone that's listening and watching this podcast with you and I talking, like, God has a purpose and a plan for their life. You weren't just born just to be born. You know, God knew even before you were in your mother's womb that he had a purpose and a calling for you. And we get to be born in this world. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't find their purpose, and they
Yeah.
die. I think Les Brown said it the best. Every one of us are born unique, but many of us die copies. And
Mhm.
that right there, thinking of, is like, I don't want to just go through life. I want to go through life and search. I think the greatest part is that is searching for your purpose. And along the journey, like, you're gonna find your purpose, but you meet incredible, interesting people, and you get to do interesting things, and then you find your purpose, and it just clicks. Like, it just clicks, and the passion and desire to drive through those ups and downs is really incredible. I know we're getting down. Thank you so much again. For those of you that are listening and watching, we are with Cicely Simpson. She is a keynote speaker, best-selling author of the book Pull Up Your Chair: 5 Strategies to Change the Trajectory of Your Career. Um, right now, as we end, we talked a little bit about politics before the podcast. There's a lot going on in every administration, like you said, has, their things are working through. And with there's just so much when it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to China and Russia coming together. You have North Korea. You have China, you have Russia working, I think, with Iran. You have the incident in Ohio, and every administration has their things. It seems like there's just so much, and now you're like, we're in the midpoint. We're getting ready for 2024 elections, which 2024 is going to be
Wow.
insane. I mean,
It's
you
going to
already
be
had,
insane. It's going
yeah,
to be insane.
you had Trump came out a while back saying he's gonna run again. You got Nikki Haley for the Republican Party saying, "Hey, I'm running. I'm throwing my hat in the ring." Everyone is on pins and needles saying, "Is DeSantis going to win? Is DeSantis going to jump in?" DeSantis is doing all these police rallies across the U.S. And then you have, you know, I know probably Joe's going to run again. From what I hear, it's like, what's up with Kamala? And Gavin Newsom in California, people think he might throw his hat in the ring. And then you have just all the things. It's just, I'm getting my popcorn, and I'm like, I got butter all over it. And I'm like, I know it's not good for me, but this is going to be, the country, it's like, even though there's that middle part, and you're right, I think it's disappearing little by little, but everyone is like, okay, everyone's going to their corner, and we are preparing for a fight.
We are. You said it well. 2024 is going to be insane. And look, that while I kind of smile when I say that, that's the truth. Everybody here, I don't care who you are in DC, around the country, if you pay attention to politics, the next 2 years are going to be just it's yeah, absolutely, it's gonna be insane. But Josh, before we wrap up, I want to extend my gratitude to you, and I want to extend a special invitation to the folks who watch and listen to your podcast. Because I know you're a person of impact. I know that you are trying to make a difference in this world like the rest of us. And I so appreciate you for that. So tell folks, if you're watching this, mention Josh's podcast, reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram, or you can just go to careergps.online. And we're going to give you a special offer for being part of Josh's community, where you can try out our career community for 7 days for free. 7-day free trial, jump in, get coaching for free, see the mentoring, see all that we have to offer. And if you want to reach out to me instead and I can get you connected, just mention Josh.
Thank you, Cicely. That is incredible. And I know that you're not really, you wouldn't say it's not like it's more than a program. It's what would you call it? Because it's not a program at all. Because a program is like community. You don't just go and you sit or you
are looking. Yeah, you're right. So many people are looking for connection. It's not that. Let's be honest, Josh. You do it and I do it. We all read books. Don't be wrong. I like my book. All of us read books. All of us take trainings. We go to conferences. We put it aside and we're done with it, and we never implement a single thing that we learn. Whereas in this community, we're like, no, we're going to give you the tools and strategies to succeed in your career. But the difference of us is we actually have coaches who walk alongside you, who are there to help you implement it. So we don't just give you the information and say, hey, good luck. It's like, nope, we're there to help hold you accountable, support you, be your cheerleader, but make sure you're actually implementing the things that we're teaching. That's the difference. It's a done with you kind of shoulder to shoulder model. That's our differentiator.
Someone says everybody needs a coach, right?
everybody needs a coach. And you and I know exactly, who said that. But absolutely,
everybody
Josh,
needs a coach.
Spot on, my friend. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Cicely, for coming on the show. Like I said, you have made such an impact on my life. Like I watch a lot of your YouTube videos. I need to buy your book. I don't know why I haven't bought your book yet. I need to buy your book. I'm going to buy your book.
I'll send you a copy. I'll send you an autographed copy for having me on the podcast. I will get that in the mail to you. That's my expression of gratitude.
Like, for those of you that are listening, watching, I got goosebumps on my arm right here. Like you are incredible. Like I said, when I first saw you, I'm like, wow, wow. Like, I'm just so thankful that I'm connected. I'm in your community, and same thing with Omar. And I think through life, as you networking, the power of networking and the power of being proactive and the benefits that come along with connecting to somebody every day. It's like, who am I going to meet today? Who am I going to connect with today? There's three questions that I ask. Who are you? What do you do? How can we network? Um, and to be able to form connections that you would not have formed if you weren't out there connecting to somebody. Some people say, well, some people are your people and some people are not your people. And if they're not your people, that's fine. That you just weren't they just weren't in meant to be. And then some people are not meant to be in your life all the time, just for a short period of time. um, but I would have never met you, Cicely, if I didn't connect with Megan and network with Megan, and Megan
Right.
introducing me. And then we continue to network. And then she invited me to be a speaker uh, alongside of, I mean, I don't even, I, being alongside of you and Omar. I'm like, oh, wow. Wow, they got books and they're like, I'm like, oh my goodness. You know what? I'm gonna do my best. But I would have never met. And it's like, I think it's that courage to be like, you know what? Um, I'm going to get in those circles. I'm going to get in those circles and make myself known and know who I am, value who I am, and really practice that in that skill set. And so I thank you, Cicely, for your friendship
Thank
and
you.
for being a center of influence. And for those that are watching and listening, we are wrapping up here. We have Cicely Simpson on with us. She is a keynote speaker and I would say a best-selling author of the book "Pulling Up Your Chair: 5 Strategies to Change the Trajectory of Your Career." It's really crazy being there in DC, and I know we're going to wrap up here in a second. My cousin Javier Lopez, I don't know if you know him or not, but he's there in DC, and his wife. Um, they have they're on Facebook. I think they're called Gov Geeks, and
I've heard
he
of
worked. You've heard of it?
it. I have.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's my cousin. You know,
awesome.
yeah. And his wife, I think, works for the FBI. Um, I want to be careful how I say this. So him and I, so he either worked for or worked with the Obama administration. Very, very good at coaching people on like government careers. Him and his wife love their videos. Um, we may not, and for everybody out there, you and your family or you and best friends may not always align politically. Uh, but I think a lot of times we have to say, let's a lot of times it's not about politics. It's family. It's this and that. And like I enjoy watching him on his with the Gov Geek stuff. But I was maybe your paths will cross. But it's just I have so much respect for people that know who they are and go after it. Whether you agree or disagree, like just the fact that they are doing something is incredible. And thank you, Cicely, again for coming on the Break Thru U podcast. We will definitely. This is going to be an episode I can't wait to upload and get out there.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful day. Any parting words as we close our episode out to those that are watching and listening?
Josh, I'll offer one parting thought that I posted on social media a couple of weeks ago, and it got a really crazy response, which was, are you leaving a legacy or are you living it every single day? You talked about it a little bit in this interview. I've talked about it a little bit. That is the question I would ask folks to think about. If you're a person of impact or a person of influence, you got to leave it on the field every day and know you're not waiting for someone to talk about you after you're gone. So I heard Chip Baker say that in the very first virtual speech I did during the pandemic. So that's the question I would leave folks with. We teach people how to be people of impact. We want to live a legacy every day, not just leave it for somebody to talk about. But that's the question I'd leave your folks with today, Josh. And thanks again. I really appreciate the conversation.
Sounds great. You have a wonderful rest of the day, Cicely. Always good to connect with you.
We'll talk soon, my friend.